أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وآتوا النساء صدقاتهن نحلة فإن طبن لكم عن شيء منه نفسا فكلوه هنيئا مريئا. And give unto women their marriage portions in the spirit of a gift, but if they of their own accord give up unto you aught thereof, then enjoy it with pleasure and good cheer. Then enjoy it with pleasure and good cheer. And give unto a woman their marriage share in the spirit of a grant, in the spirit of a donation. But if they, women, of their own accord, of their own agreement, give up unto you nothing thereof, then enjoy it with pleasure, eat it with pleasure and good cheer. No problem for you. Explanation 5. The expression nihle signifies the giving of something willingly, of one's own accord, of one's own agreement, without expecting a return, without expecting a profit, giving back for it. Zamakhshari says, it is to be noted that the amount of the marriage portion, marriage money, marriage share, Mahr in Arabic, or dova grant, donation, which the bridegroom, a man on his wedding day, has to give to the bride, a woman on her wedding day, has not been circumscribed, has not been restricted, regulated by the law. It depends entirely, completely on the agreement of the two parties and may consist of anything, even a mere token, even a mere souvenir. According to several authentic traditions, a hadith in Arabic, recorded in most of the compilations, in most of the collections, the Prophet made it clarified that even an iron ring may be enough if the bride is willing to accept it. Or short of that, even the imparting, even the telling, reciting to your bride of a verse of the Quran. And you can read the Quran as a marriage portion if you are poor and the bride accepts that marriage, no problem. Verse number 5. وَلَا تُؤْتُوا السُّفَهَاءَ أَمْوَالَكُمُ الَّتِي جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ قِيَامًا وَارْزُقُوهُمْ فِيهَا وَاكْسُوهُمْ وَقُولُوا لَهُمْ قَوْلًا مَعْرُوفًا. And do not entrust to those who are weak of judgment the possessions which God has placed in your charge for their support. But let them have their sustenance therefrom, and clothe them, and speak unto them in a kindly way. And don't assign the responsibility to those people who are weak of judgment, such as children, the possessions which God has placed in your encumber charge for their support, but let them have their food and drink therefrom, and dress them and speak unto them in a gentle way. Explanation 6. Literally, your possessions which God has assigned to you, entrusted to you, the context makes it obvious, clear that this relates to the property of orphans, the one whose father died, who have not yet reached the age of discretion, the age of responsibility, and are therefore weak of judgment, literally weak-minded people. Verse number 6. وَابْتَلُوا الْيَتَامَى حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغُوا النِّكَاحَ فَإِنْ آنَسْتُمْ مِنْهُمْ رُشْدًا فَادْفَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ أَمْوَالَهُمْ ولا تأكلوها إسرافا فبدارا أن يكبروا ومن كان غنيا فليستعفف ومن كان فقيرا فليأكل بالمعروف فإذا دفعتم إليهم أموالهم فأشهدوا عليهم وكفى بالله حسيبا. And test the orphans in your charge until they reach a marriageable age. Then if you find them to be mature of mind, hand over to them their possessions, and do not consume them by wasteful spending and in haste, or they grow up, and let him who is rich abstain entirely from his ward's property, and let him who is poor partake thereof in a fair manner. And when you hand over to them their possessions, let there be witnesses on their behalf, although none can take count as God does. And test the orphans whose fathers are dead in your charge, in your responsibility, until they reach a marriageable age. Then if you find them to be mature of mind, give them their possessions, belongings, and do not consume them, do not finish them by wasteful spending, and in haste and swiftly, before they grow up, before the orphans grow up. And let him who is rich abstain, keep himself far from, entirely from his tutelage property, and let him who is poor share thereof in a fair manner. And when you give them their possessions, belongings, let there be witnesses on their behalf, on their side, although none can bring to account as Allah does. Verse number 7. للرجال نصيب مما ترك الوالدان والأقربون وللنساء نصيب مما ترك الوالدان والأقربون مما قل منه أو كثر نصيبا مفروضا. Men shall have a share in what parents and kinsfolk leave behind, and women shall have a share in what parents and kinsfolk leave behind, whether it be little or much, a share ordained by God. Men shall have a share in what parents and relatives leave behind after their death, and women shall have a share in what parents and relatives leave behind, whether it be little or much, a share commanded by God. Verse number 8. وإذا حضر القسمة أولو القربى واليتامى والمساكين فارزقوهم منه وقولوا لهم قولا معروفا. And when other near of kin and orphans and needy persons are present at the distribution of inheritance, give them something thereof for their sustenance, and speak unto them in a kindly way. And when other near of relatives and orphans, fatherless, the ones who lost their fathers, and needy persons, poor persons, are present, existing at the distribution, at the allocation of inheritance, give them something thereof for their sustenance, food and drink, and speak unto them in a gentle way. Explanation 7. i.e., people who do not have any legal claim to the inheritance, legacy, but nevertheless deserve to be considered. Verse number 9. وَلْيَخْشَ الَّذِينَ لَوْ تَرَكُوا مِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّةً ضعافا خافوا عليهم فليتقوا الله وليقولوا قولا سديدا. And let them stand in awe of God, those legal heirs who, if they themselves had to leave behind weak offspring, would feel fear on their account and let them remain conscious of God, and let them speak to the poor in a just manner. And let them stand fear of God, those legal inheritors who, if they themselves had to leave behind helpless offspring, would feel fear on their account. And let them remain conscious of God, and let them speak to the poor in a just manner. Verse number 10. إن الذين يأكلون أموال اليتامى ظلما إنما يأكلون في بطونهم نارا وسيصلون سعيرا. Behold, those who sinfully devour the possessions of orphans, but fill their bellies with fire, for in the life to come they will have to endure a blazing flame. Pay attention, those who sinfully eat up the possessions of orphans, but fill their stomachs with fire, for in the life to come, for in the hereafter, they will have to remain a burning flame. Verse number 11. يوصيكم الله في أولادكم للذكر مثل الحظ الأنثيين فإن كن نساء فوق اثنتين فلهن ثلثا ما ترك وإن كانت واحدة فلها النصف ولأبويه لكل واحد منهما السدس مما ترك إن كان له ولد فإن لم يكن له ولد وورثه أبواه فلأمه الثلث فإن كان له إخوة فلأمه السدس من بعد وصية يوصى بها أو دين آباؤكم وأبناؤكم لا تدرون أيهم أقرب لكم نفعا فريضة من الله إن الله كان عليما حكيما. Concerning the inheritance of your children, God enjoins this upon you. The male shall have the equal of 2 females' share. But if there are more than 2 females, they shall have 2/3 of what their parents leave behind. And if there is only 1 daughter, she shall have 1/2 thereof. And as for the parents of the deceased, each of them shall have 1/6 of what he leaves behind, in the event of his having left a child. But if he has left no child and his parents are his only heirs, then his mother shall have 1/3. And if he has brothers and sisters, then his mother shall have 1/6 after the deduction of any bequest he may have made, or any debt he may have incurred. As for you parents and your children, you know not which of them is more deserving of benefit from you. Therefore, this ordinance from God. Verily, God is all-knowing, wise. Regarding the inheritance of your children, God orders this upon you. The male shall have the equal of 2 females' share in legacy, but if there are more than 2 females, they shall have 2/3 of what their parents leave behind as inheritance. And if there is only 1 daughter, she shall have 1/2 thereof. And as for the parents of the dead, each of them shall have 1/6 of what he leaves behind. In the case of his having left a child. But if he has left no child, and his parents, father and mother, are his only inheritors, then his mother shall have 1/3. And if he has brothers and sisters, then his mother shall have 1/6 after the subtraction of any heritage he may have made, or any debt he may have undergone. As for your parents and your children, you know not which of them is more deserving of benefit from you. You can't know which one is more beneficial for you. Therefore, this command from Allah, verily Allah knows everything, Allah is wise. Explanation 8. In my notes on verses 11 to 12, which spell out, which explain in detail the legal shares of inheritance due to, belonging to the next of kin, the close relatives, no attempt has been made to analyze all the legal implications, all the legal finger posts of this ordinance, of this command. The laws of inheritance are the subject of a special and very elaborate, detailed branch of Islamic jurisprudence, and their full elucidation, explanation, would go far beyond the scope, extent of explanatory notes, which aim at no more than making the text of the Quran accessible, reachable to the understanding of the non-specialized reader. Verse number 12. وَلَكُمْ نِصْفُ مَا تَرَكَ أَزْوَاجُكُمْ إِنْ لَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُنَّ وَلَدٌ فَإِنْ كَانَ لَهُنَّ وَلَدٌ فَلَكُمُ الرُّبُعُ مِمَّا تَرَكْنَ مِنْ بَعْدِ وَصِيَّةٍ يُوصِينَ بِهَا أَوْ دَيْنٍ وَلَهُنَّ الرُّبُعُ مِمَّا تَرَكْتُمْ إِنْ لَمْ يَكُنْ لَكُمْ وَلَدٌ فإن كان لكم ولد فلهن الثمن مما تركتم من بعد وصية توصون بها أو دين وإن كان رجل يورث كلالة أو امرأة وله أخ أو أخت فلكل واحد منهما السدس فإن كانوا أكثر من ذلك فهم شركاء في الثلث من بعد وصية يوصى بها أو دين غير مضار وصية من الله والله عليم حليم. And you shall inherit 1/2 of what your wives leave behind, provided they have left no child. But if they have left a child, then you shall have 1/4 of what they leave behind, after the deduction of any bequest they may have made, or any debt they may have incurred. And your widows shall have 1/4 of what you leave behind, provided you have left no child. But if you have left a child, then they shall have 1/8 of what you leave behind, after the deduction of any bequest you may have made, or any debt you may have incurred. And if a man or a woman has no heir in the direct line, but has a brother or a sister, then each of these two shall inherit 1/6. But if there are more than two, then they shall share in 1/3 of the inheritance, after the deduction of any bequest that may have been made, or any debt that may have been incurred, neither of which having been intended to harm the heirs. This is an injunction from God, and God is all-knowing, forbearing. And you shall inherit 1/2 of what your wives leave behind after their death, provided on the condition they have left no child. But if they have left a child, then you shall have 1/4 of what they leave behind as inheritance, after the subtraction of any heritage, any inheritance they may have made, or any debt they may have incurred, they may have undergone. And your widows shall have 1/4 of what you leave behind, provided you have left no child. But if you have left a child, then they shall have 1/8 of what you leave behind, after the subtraction of any bequest, any heritage you may have made, or any debt you may have incurred, you may have undergone. And if a man or a woman has no heir, has no inheritor in the direct line, but has a brother or a sister, then each of these two shall inherit 1/6. But if there are more than two, then they shall share in 1/3 of the inheritance, after the subtraction of any inheritance that may have been made, or any debt that may have been incurred undergone, neither of which having been intended to harm the heirs, inheritors. This is an order from God, and God knows everything. God is patient. Explanation 9, literary they. Explanation 10, literary more than that. According to most of the classical commentators, this passage refers to half-brothers, step-brothers, and half-sisters, step-sisters. The inheritance of full brothers and sisters is handled at the end of this surah, verse 176. Explanation 11. This refers to bequests, heritages, and fictitious imaginary debts meant to deprive the heirs, inheritors, of their legal shares. According to several authentic traditions, the Prophet prohibited, in cases where there are legal heirs, the making of heritages to other persons in excess of more than 1/3 of one's estate property. Bukhari and Muslim, two collections of the traditions of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. If, however, there are no near of a kin, near of a relative, legally entitled to, authorized a share of the inheritance, the testatrix is free to bequeath, free to legacy his fortune in any way he desires. Verse number 12. تلك حدود الله ومن يطع الله ورسوله يدخله جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها وذلك الفوز العظيم. There are two bounds set by God, and whoever pays heed unto God and his apostle, him will he bring into gardens through which running waters flow, therein to abide, and this is a triumph supreme. These are the limits ordered by Allah, and whoever give ear unto Allah and his messenger, him will he bring into gardens, Jannah, through which running waters flow, therein to stay. And this is a victory, this is a great victory. In English, if you want to give extra meaning to an expression, you bring the adjective after the noun. In reality, we say in English supreme triumph, but to emphasize here, Asad says triumph supreme. Verse number 14. وَمَنْ يَعْصِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَيَتَعَدَّى حُدُودَهُ يُدْخِلْهُ نَارًا خَالِدًا فِيهَا وَلَهُ عَذَابٌ مُهِينٌ. And whoever rebels against God and his apostle and transgresses his bounds, him will he commit unto fire, therein to abide, and shameful suffering awaits him. And whoever disobeys Allah and his messenger and exceeds his limits, Allah's limits, him will he put into fire, therein to stay, and disgraceful suffering awaits him. Ve akhiru davana elhamdülillahi rabbil alemin.